Hello everyone, today's video is brought to you by my friends and sponsors, the Uccello kettle. The Uccello kettle is an advancement in design in equipment for people with disabilities. If you look at traditional kettle tippers, wireframe, a bit of Velcro on it, they look horrendous. That's the last thing somebody wants in their kitchen. Uccello Designs have taken this and designed a really nice looking piece of equipment. This kettle is wonderful looking. I own one myself. If you look at my first two videos, there's one in the backdrop next to Pikachu. So it's a kettle that sits on a pivot, it's lightweight, makes it easy to pour, it's got a particular shape, you can get it in contrasting colours if you have visual impairment. It's great if you've got reduced range of movement or reduced strength in your upper limb. Ideally, it's a great for yourself, or it's a great gift for somebody. If you know somebody, a relative or a friend that has difficulty managing their regular kettle and has maybe had to compromise by getting a travel kettle or has one of those horrible wireframe things, the Uccello kettle is for them. It looks like a wonderful kettle. It just looks great, it boils quietly, and it pours effortlessly. And for a limited time only, my friends at Uccello Designs have given me the discount code Athena10. That's Athena10. If you go to their website and you put that discount code in, you will get a discount off your first purchase. Uccello Designs. Thanks, guys. So, the Athena Handling Project. I'm all about empowering OTs, I'm all about bringing OTs together, I'm all about being a voice for occupational therapy and taking our training back from the moving and handling institutions and people, frankly, that don't do our job and have never done our job. You know I'm about that. But I want to link it to something else. Since I've trained so many people the last 2 years on the project, I've noticed more and more physiotherapists coming on my training courses alongside occupational therapists, and the effect it has on the dynamic in these groups is wonderful, because the community handling certificate is unlike any training you've ever had. We're very problem based. This is the reality of what you face in the community, or if you're discharging somebody home, and we take on the perspective of the OT, of the physio, in order to assess, evaluate and plan, and that enables both parties to see how the other party thinks and works. And this is really, really important. The first point I want to strike on here, why it's so important to have OTs and physios on these same moving and handling training courses, is culture. Even in social care, the culture of the NHS still has quite a pervasive influence right across the board. I'll put some article links in the typey bit below to articles that refer to the NHS as a feudal culture. Now, what is a feudal culture? Well, in the United Kingdom, that comes from a chap called William the Conqueror. You might know him. He was a Norman, French lad, decides, I quite like Britain, I think I'm going to have it. So he had a system. He was the king, then you had lords and ladies, knights, captains, soldiers, and then you had peasants, serfs. And when you look at the model of the NHS, it is quite similar. You have consultants and managers, everyone else then that's close to them, so you'll have nurses who are quite medical, then allied health professionals fall in behind them in that structure. And how high you are in that AHP structure very much depends on how close you are to that medical model. Now that's important to note. So for generations now, I've been an OT for 23 years. When I started in the profession, it was a very adversarial relationship with our friends at physiotherapy. I'm noticing a change in that. Even the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy and the Royal College are working together a few years back, started working together on long COVID. We need leadership to lead the way. I'm seeing more and more that physiotherapy working more closely with OT, and that creates understanding. But still, we do need to get past that hierarchical feudal structure, which is quite noticeable in many acute hospitals now, whereas decisions are made on where you stand in that culture. How you're listened to, it very much depends on where you are in that culture. So if you're an occupational therapist, the chances are you'll be getting a lot of prescriptive referrals. This is the outcome we want, do what you're told, or you're bullied into that outcome. Now, saying that, I understand as a practicing occupational therapist myself, and I've worked in hospitals where it isn't like that. When I've worked in stroke, in acute stroke, we have the snap targets, we have these structures, and everyone gets a certain amount of time. And I found that quite refreshing. But when I've worked in acute medicine, that's been different. There's a, you do what you're told. We do need to change that, and training together breaks down that culture. It will enable physios and OTs to look at each other differently, less adversarially. Look at what you bring to the table, understand your roles better. And I think that OT and physio now are in a wonderful spot to challenge that feudal culture, to stand in our own light, but stand united. Another issue outside of culture would be structures. In 1990, I think the Community Care Act was passed, and they looked at internal markets. That was essentially NHS trusts, authorities, foundations competing against each other for contracts and budgets. And that came down to the shop floor. So you find pots of money and people competing for that money, different directorates competing for that money. Physiotherapy could be in a medical directorate. Quite often OTs are in community directorates that might not be seen with the same favoritism as maybe the medical directorate, again, because you're allied to medicine. But that causes people to be fighting for money, arguing about things, and that really fed in to the adversarial relationship our professions have had back in the day. If we can challenge that, again, if we can stand together and show our value of working together, we can improve that relationship. Again, in training, in moving and handling training, we can make a massive difference. I've seen a huge difference in the way physio and OT work with each other in the community. At OTAC in May, I've got Lindsay Proud coming to speak in our sponsored theatre about the home care project that they run in Sunderland City Council. That's physios and OTs going into care homes proactively. Now, it's taken them years to break down these walls. They can be very secretive environments, but they're going in, they're making a difference, but they're working together to do that. On my training courses, I discussed with OTs and physios elements of assessment that they could share to improve communication, streamline communication, and improve efficiency. And that's worked out really well. Everything from assessing somebody's ability to move in a bed. So if you're not able to move them and you're referring on to physio for that intervention, what problems were they having? How can you be more precise with that referral? And physiotherapy, when you're looking at somebody's ability to stand and you think they might need a mechanised stand aid, or you move into a hoist, what's the rationale for that when you're coming back to the OT? It improves understanding. We're learning more about each other's role. We're taking control of our environment. And that comes from training. In the community handling project, OTs and physios and managers, when they come along, will learn to discuss and evaluate the equipment that they use, the benefits and the barriers to using certain equipment. Why does equipment work well in one circumstance and why does it not in another circumstance? And when you've got two different professions doing the same training, you improve understanding in that. But also when you're going ahead for your special orders or you're trying to get continuing healthcare funding, you've got a rationale and an argument to justify that. But that justification should be easily accessible. That knowledge should be easily accessible for both professions. Ultimately, what I'm saying, by training these two professions together, we can erode the hierarchical culture that has formed the structure of the NHS and influenced community services for decades. We can improve client outcomes. We can improve just people enjoying their day at work because they're not in an adversarial relationship with somebody who's essentially an AHP cousin. Let's be the cousins who we get excited around when they visit rather than the cousin that goes around to break their toys. Let's be that cousin. Because whether you like it or not, OT and physio, we're family. We are family. And whenever I speak to someone, contacts me for training, because I don't run open courses, for the time being, the community handling certificate is a closed course. If it's health and they contact me, and it's usually an OT, have you got physios? Can we get the physios involved in this training? If we can do that, we can start to create a better environment for our clients. And let's face it, NHS and social care, a better environment for us to work in, to improve retention of staff. It's something for you to think about, guys.